Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, getting ready for the Red Raiders and Horned Frogs. Will Darrion Williams be available for this edition of the West Texas Round Ball Championship, which is a thing people are calling this. People besides just me.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 on the way, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet only $5, and if it hits, you're scoring $200 in bonus bets. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And it's game day again. Red Raiders and Horned Frogs, the West Texas Round Ball Championship. Is that a thing? I don't know. I'm trying to make it one. From United Supermarkets Arena coming up before the Red Raiders hit the road for two of their next three. And I think we may kind of repeat some talking points as we get ready for this matchup, Chris, where you really want to take care of business, avoid any potential pitfall as you look ahead to some big challenges. But Texas Christian in your building, so we'll set the table for this one coming up. I want to get to some players to watch really for both teams, but we'll mention some names specifically in Darrion Williams and Chance McMillan and talk about how their roles have evolved as the season has gone along. And then also we'll switch gears before we're out of here, and we'll get back to Big 12 football as some title odds beginning to roll out. And I thought along with those odds, there were some oddities as far as some of the things that we learned from this list. And it's just one, but we'll see maybe some similar things as we roll through the offseason. So we'll get to that coming up in just a moment. But tell me if I'm wrong, Chris. It is kind of back to a similar vibe as we were in on Sunday when Oklahoma State came to town. You got a team in Texas Christian that's not really going to compare necessarily competitively to what you're about to see, and they're coming to your home floor, but obviously don't want to take it lightly as they could give you a lot of trouble, and you're looking to maintain some momentum now for the first time this season in the top 25.
Yeah, and these are, these are opportunities you just have to take advantage of, and TCU will be a bit better and more talented, I think, than Oklahoma State is. I don't know if they'll play as scrappy and as physical as Oklahoma State did, but there's a little more juice there, if that makes sense. Now, like Oklahoma State, they will struggle to score, but I just happened to be home on that Sunday about a week and a half ago and watching, we have these Sunday games now, and I watched, TCU at Baylor at 4:00 on a Sunday afternoon, and I just kind of, about to play both teams and just kind of what else is going on. And so I just tuned in, and it was a game that Baylor controlled at times, and we're up 10 at the half, and maybe even we're up 10 with about 15, 16 to go. And then all of a sudden TCU just kind of kept hanging around. And then they ended up getting over the hump and then held on and won. And for as middling as TCU may be, you don't have to look any further than just that game right there if you want to be on high alert. That is, because that's an impressive. It's just hard to go win in Waco for everybody in basketball. And I'm guessing Baylor was probably favored by 8 to 10 points in that game. I don't know if quite that many, but I bet it was around that number. And again, nothing to show for it. It's TCU. So that was their UCF game. To where you just kind of are going to want to kick yourself, for weeks to come if it costs you this or that. But so TCU was one of the oldest teams in the league last year, and they got a lot of preseason hype. There was a lot of talk. They were a scary team to play just because they were swimming in fourth and fifth year guys. Just an old team, talented team. It equaled a 9-9 finish in the Big 12, and so you were better than them in the regular season. They ended up losing in the first round of the NCAA tournament like you did. But now they are one of the youngest teams in the Big 12. And you've seen, Baylor starts a couple of true freshmen. BYU, who you've already seen, starts a couple of true freshmen. And Jamie Dixon right now, this is because he has had an old team for a while, it feels like. but they played 10 guys. 5 of those 10 are freshmen. 5. They've got 3 seniors. And here's the interesting connection here, as we seemingly have. There's some sort of connection with all these teams or players and all that. Here's what it is for TCU. Trezarian White is a kid from Mansfield, Texas, that was transferring out of UNC Wilmington. I think he took a visit to your place this past, what would that have been, like April or May? You were in the middle of it, and I don't know. I think there's some would say you passed. Others would say, hey, he ended up picking TCU over you. Who knows what's the truth? Anyway, there's a dynamic there. The other one who hit a big 3 at the end of that Baylor game is Brendan Wenzel. Also, I think came on a visit here. He and we talked about these guys on this show. Wenzel was somebody that was one of the first visitors you had when the portal thing was open, and because lo and behold, guess where he played last year? Wyoming. So Jeff Linder connection. And he ends up, I think, whether you passed on him or he ended up going, just picking TCU over you. Anyway, I think those guys were in Lubbock and we're in the Womble, and you're talking shop and you're trying to figure it out. And anyway, they both ended up at TCU. They are 2 of their top rotational guys, and so there's that. So extra motivated or felt slighted, I don't know. It depends on how it went down with each guy, and maybe they did legitimately just pick TCU over you. And at that point, obviously they wouldn't have any reason to be motivated and all that. Just worth pointing out that these were a couple of guys that I think you were in on, and now you're going to play against them not once but twice. And obviously tonight will be the first go around at that deal. But TCU struggles to score. That's where their problems lie. They struggle to score consistently. Now, Ernest Uday, he's the Kansas transfer that was kind of this young player, and he's been on TCU's campus for a year or 2 now. When he plays really well, they're a handful. And at Baylor that day, on that Sunday, he had 16 and 15, and they out-rebounded Baylor by, I think it was like 41-25 in that game. That's why they won it. And Uday he's their starting center. He's only averaging like 6 points a game in Big 12 play, but he's averaging like 8 or 9 boards. So he's kind of like this. If he plays well, then look out. If he doesn't, then they'll struggle. But they've got some guards that Noah Reynolds and Vashawn Alette that I think transferred in from Old Dominion and Green Bay that are leading scorers for them. So I don't know what you'll get. This will be a little bit more of a scary matchup, I think, for you. And it's a 6 p.m. tip. And again, I don't know what the crowd will look like, but you're going to need to play better than you did most of the game on Sunday, I would guess. So we'll see what we get tonight.
Yeah, kind of curious whether or not maybe some of their struggles offensively could be, rubbing off on you in a way, and it kind of gets into one of those sluggish sort of outings once again, just like we came from. And still trying to figure out really where Texas Tech is more geared. What's the truer, I guess, resemblance of what they are as a team? We've talked about them being versatile, but there's obviously never a day where you're like, hey, we're only going to score 64 this time around. Forget the 81. We'll go 64 and it's all good. Now, finding still a way to be successful as a team when it is that kind of day, I think we have seen that the Red Raiders have the ability to do. But kind of wondering what we get offensively is there have been some different pictures of the Texas Tech offense in some recent outings. And you just mentioned some names to watch as far as Texas Christian players are concerned, but I want to turn our attention now to the Red Raiders. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's calling the first touchdown, MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field throughout the game. and the app is super easy to navigate. And knowing that you can place only a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started today. Bet only $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. For a variety of reasons, some of those having more to do with health than actual basketball, Darrion Williams, very high on my list, is a guy that I'm going to be intensely focused in on if he is out there to be focused in on, which I think is a question I have to ask, I guess, is we've already mentioned the word status regarding Darrion once this week for the ball game against the Horned Frogs. But you mentioned to me off the air also a guy that nobody's forgotten about, but one that's standing out to you maybe even more so right now in Chance McMillan. So let's touch on those two guys, and we can revisit what's happening with D5. But I'm interested for you to share your thoughts with the audience with what you're seeing from McMillan to this point also.
Chance is probably going to go down as one of those guys, and maybe I'm going to mention the name of like an Adonis Arms to where like that year, Bryson Williams got a ton of attention, and Arms was just kind of one of these like role players, but better than that on a lot of occasion. And he was just maybe one of those guys that I just saw Adonis. That's why I'm bringing him up. He was at the game this past Sunday. But Chance, I feel like Chance in some ways is like the we take you for granted guy. The head coach doesn't. Okay, the head coach will mention Chance McMillan's name really at the top of the list. I just think, though, as we talk about this team, correct me if I'm wrong, we've probably spent way more time talking about Darrion Williams, JT Toppin, Elijah Hawkins in recent weeks, Christian Anderson, and we rarely talk about Chance McMillan and single him out. I'm not so certain that he's not your MIP, your most important player, because, and he's an Iron Man, knock on wood here, but he's playing way more minutes than anybody. He is right at the top of a scorer on your team. You talk about how good of a well-rounded player that Darrion Williams is, and we know how good of a rebounder JT Toppin is with the scoring. I mean, Chance McMillan averages as many rebounds a game as Darrion does in Big 12 play.
Yeah, that always stands out to me, his work on the glass.
It's sneaky, it's sneaky. It's like you just forget about it. And he's not the biggest guy, but it's a want to. He
can get up and he'll compete.
Yeah, he's got big-time athleticism. Yeah. But it's he does the the nitty gritty I think, and that's what makes him you talk about him like as a glue guy but he's kind of
or like a 3-point finesse guy. I mean last year when he kind of bangs onto the scene with a big day shooting the 3-ball, you're like, all right, well that's cool. Had some of those before, and maybe he'll be another great one. And then all of a sudden he's like tomahawking a guy's forehead at the rim. I'm thinking, oh, all right, so he'll play above the rim also, and then he's tossing in 6-8 rebounds, whatever. I mean, just kind of surprisingly checking a lot of boxes as we've come along. And I don't know, man, you must have, I know you're having sports conversations all over with a variety of people. Everybody wants a piece of Chris Level. Are you sure you're not confusing one of those others for this one? Because I feel like we're putting the spotlight on our guy.
We are.
Pretty often, but his evolution to become a complete player has really been fun to watch, man. And coming out of Grand Canyon, right? I think if I have that.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Who is this guy? And then we got to know him very quickly.
Yeah, and he, I don't know how ultimately he will be remembered. I just feel like, his name needs to be a bit brighter on the marquee. Yeah. I guess. But it's just fun to watch him play. But I mean, you think about how many minutes he's giving you, and then the versatility. Because what he doesn't do. He scores consistently. He's the rebounder, but I think two things we don't give him enough credit for is his ability on the defensive end in most games. Because you go back to the beginning of your conference, the conference schedule, and I just remember that trip to Utah, and it's like while he wasn't scoring like crazy, he was still getting into the double digits. But it was what he was doing. I remember what he did to the Madsen kid, and then like the Richie Saunders. Yep. And we didn't. They were leading scorers, and like not that night. And a lot of that has to do with Chance McMillan. And I think that he's kind of, he's been pretty steady there. But he's not the big assist guy. He's not asked to handle the ball a ton or anything like that. And so he just kind of blends in sometimes. But man, he's I don't know where you'd be without him because I'm trying to remember which one it was, but there was a night or so ago or a game or so ago whenever he didn't have his best offensive game and you didn't score a ton of points and you think, man, it's just this is one of the Chance really struggled, but that's a rarity. He's just pretty darn consistent, and it's almost like whoa, he only scored like 3 or 4 points or whatever it was. But anyway, I think as we're seeing this play out, Darrion Williams kind of has had some games to where it's just not really been a huge factor, whether it's ankle or just not playing well or whatever it is. JT Toppin has kind of had some of those too. And even Elijah Hawkins has had some, games where there's just not crazy numbers being put up. But Chance McMillan is somebody that he's been pretty darn consistent with his output every night. And again, 34 minutes a night in this league. That's what he's giving you. The next closest guy is only playing 30. That is where would you be without him?
Yeah, no doubt. And maybe they're saving some of the complete pictures when they all show up at the same time, having great games for March. And that'd be just fine with me if you want to make a run that way. Because you do think about the level to which those that you just listed can impact a game. And it's like a player, primary player, featured player level, I think in most instances. And you just wonder maybe if you got to a spot where you could piece it all together at the same time, what it might look like. I know that's much easier said than done, but wouldn't mind that happening this time around as well with Texas Christian on the other bench. So is it, before we get away from basketball and get to these Big 12 title odds, is it appropriate to wonder about not only Darrion Williams' like level of health or his status, but even his availability, or how do you approach an expectation for him here midweek?
Yeah, I think Grant is said, I think he'll be fine, and all those things, but define fine. like available or will play, yes, but is this at 65%? Is it 85%? Is it because he's looked like himself to start some of these games, and you could see the smile and the bounce, but I just don't know if I see quite the quickness that we're used to seeing. And you can just tell he doesn't. I think he's kind of turned the ball over a bit at times, and I think it's because he just is lacking some of that quickness, and he's slower to get to react just because his wheels are, one of his wheels is kind of busted.
The wheels has to be part of it. Is he a bigger guy this year, weight wise? Because he's looked a little chunkier to me.
Well, he's just, he's a below the rim guy. I mean, that's really, that's just kind of he's got an old man game a little bit to him. Right. He's just thick, but he's a positionless guy. And he's just crafty. Really his
crafty.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, he's thick on the lower half for sure, but that's why he can back you down and kind of operate in that way. But I just, I anticipate he plays tonight. I just don't know at what level that looks like. And that's really, and can he finish the game, but fortunately you've been able to figure out ways to get the results without having him at his absolute best, because him shooting 26% from behind the arc is not who Darrion Williams is.
Right.
And I have to attribute a lot of that to just him not being 100%.
I mean, I will admit I was a little spoiled by that 100% shooting game. Remember that one he had last year where he decided just not to miss?
Perfect.
And it wasn't 1 of 1. There were a few more shots went up. So maybe I was just spoiled by that. But yeah, I think he's better than 29% also from beyond the arc.
Yeah. Yeah. But
he is, man. So it's kind of a tenuous situation sort of managing him, I guess, right now, because he's so vital to your big picture goals.
Yeah. That was against Kansas last year, was it not? Yeah, that's right.
Something like that.
Oh yeah, Bill Self didn't see the end of that game.
We didn't.
Yeah, I'm guessing Bill Self didn't want to see the end.
Yeah, he got a reprieve.
The most recent game that he coached in. This past weekend.
That too.
Yeah, but I think I hope that you get to a point where like we look back at this little stint with him and his ankle, and you kind of look back in a few weeks and go, okay, remember when he was kind of not right? Well, you're starting to see him round into form, because it could be. I can envision where if this continues to like nag and be a problem, I can envision a scenario to where you literally look at your coaching staff and Grant has the conversation amongst themselves, if they haven't already, and depending on how bad it is, or what his pain tolerance is, or what the actual injury looks like, and all that stuff, with all the information they would have, if they don't go, should we shut him down and just not play him this game or this week? I don't know. I don't know whether you do that or not, and you have to be strategic on when you would do that, because there is no week off. There is no rest.
Well, it's funny you say that, because there's I think it was my guy Chuck from the Matador Mob. His mother calls him Charlie. Asking that question, is this one where we consider do we have to push him against Texas Christian? And we went back and forth texting about it a little bit, but my general summation was that's a very dangerous kind of idea. I get why it's being asked, but you're kind of playing with fire too, in a way.
Well, and again, without knowing the info, but say tonight you get through this game and you could just still tell it's just bothering him.
Yeah.
I mean, this may sound really terrible to say, but I could envision a scenario to where this Saturday versus Houston is the perfect game to rest him for. I mean, it's going to take a monumental effort to go win. And I'm not saying you go in there and just wave the white flag, but at some point you have to look at, you be realistic with your chances and the games and where these are located, and just figure, and again, the timing of everything, because now this injury is still somewhat fresh. So again, I don't know what they would do, but I mean,
you kind of go the other way. You're thinking about the context and how big that hill is to climb, where my guy Chuck, I think, was thinking otherwise. Hey, maybe this is a smaller hill to climb, so we think about it. But I get what you're saying too.
Yeah, I mean, because I just look at it from the standpoint, it's going to take and we'll talk about it as it gets closer, but you're going to have to play the best game you've had all year to have a chance to beat Houston, in my opinion, based on, I've watched them many times this year. They don't call fouls. They're deep. They're extremely physical.
Yeah,
I mean, all the stuff, right? Yeah. And the chances are it's going to be very, very difficult to win it. So but I'm not trying to lay out any scenario or whatever. We're just talking hypotheticals here. But
we're just talking. Nobody's waving any flags. We're just talking.
Yeah, but hopefully you get a better version, a fresher version tonight, and there's no hiccups, and away we go, and then this is in the rear view. But if it continues to just be a thing, at some point you may just have to, save him from himself or put on the brakes and say, hey man,
yeah,
because I mean, and I'm going off of Grant's examples here. Think about how he talked about Elijah Hawkins and Christian Anderson to start the season, and then think about how long it took to get JT Toppin back. We're not putting them out there unless they're close to 100%. We've got too much to go, and so this is in that same vein, I think. So
yeah, there's kind of a precedent.
Yep, we shall see.
Yeah, going back to last year and the way that some of these things were handled also. So an interesting thing to keep an eye on, and as I already mentioned, we know how important Darrion Williams is to the big picture. So hopefully we'll proceed and progress smoothly, knock on wood again. Second time this episode. Before we're out of here, Chris, I want to get some quick thoughts from you on this. We head to the land of Big 12 football. Some title odds beginning to trickle out this offseason as we look ahead, and wanted to get into some of these odds and what I also thought were oddities included, some things unexpected. So the list looks like this: Kansas State at the top of it, Utah, Arizona State, Baylor, Iowa State to follow, Kansas, BYU, Colorado, Texas Christian, Texas Tech, Central Florida, West Virginia to follow that. And then you plummet off of the cliff into the land of the Cougars, the Cowboys, the Wildcats, and the Bearcats. But you get the idea. So was curious to hear your thoughts on that. And if you're like me, kind of looking at where some of these were slotted, a little bit surprised. Apparently there's some love for Utah going to be out there this offseason, just as an example. What'd you think?
If I'm being honest, I thought it was a misprint when I saw that Utah was at the top. I mean, I'm like is it
Check the date, like going back a year ago.
Yeah, like football. Is somebody been hacked or? I don't, for the life of me, I don't really understand that. I mean, in Vegas they take emotion out of it. They take, there's really no. It's not like, hey, what you did last year is what you're going to do this year, and all the stuff that they're worried about making money. Okay, so they try to set odds to create even action or to create action and all those things. But I was like, it's like, what's the old Scooby Doo, like, like what, yeah, I that one, and you can haggle over Texas Tech too low, or why is Kansas so high, or whatever. I don't have any problem with like Kansas State being near the top. I mean,
no, I wouldn't either.
That right. Yeah. But yeah, some of it, I'll be interested to see as we start to see more of these things, because there is a bigger unknown as it relates to this because of the portal than really ever. I mean, and that's why people will tell you, like, man, if you're a handicapper and the hardest week for Vegas to set everything for is like these week 1 and week 2, that was really anyway. Probably even more so now, because you don't know what these teams are going to look like. Yeah, you know who's going to play there and who came in and who left, and there's a lot of assumptions made. So, but I think the big picture is that Texas Tech's not necessarily some favorite, or they'll get talked up. They're going to get some pub, and I think some of it deserved. But there's some juice in this league, man. I mean, I think, because I'm looking at like, why is BYU and Arizona State not higher on that odds list? Like, what am I missing? And why is Utah? I mean, there's nothing about what I saw of any snap of Utah football last year that suggests they should be anywhere near the top half, much less in the lead. So I don't really understand that, but hey, man, whatever. That's what's fun about this stuff, I guess. And keep in mind, those are odds to win the national championship, not the Big 12, not over under win totals. We'll start getting all those kinds of things. But we got to get a schedule first, man. Sheesh.
Here we go.
I know. Yeah, that would be nice. So
got another out of the way elsewhere. An ACC release, right?
Accurate. On the ACC network. I know you were tuned in, Calvin. I know you were tuned in.
Yes, that is a network that I knew still existed, of course, prior to that show.
They a birdie told me that they replay Dennis Conner-led yacht races on said ACC network at times, like in the middle of the night. So that's why I knew that you were tuned in and locked in.
You can tell the people that by birdie you mean me calling you at 2:30 in the morning. Chris, Dennis Conner's on the ACC network. Get to the TV quick. Yeah, I think you may just have to be asking yourself as a Tech fan, and maybe you didn't feel this way to begin with, but is this going to be something we overinflate this offseason as far as the impact of this portal class? Does it go a positive way? Is there a negative direction it could spin? Because obviously you are adding quite a number of catalysts to your locker room that weren't there previously, that are going to be expected to play some big roles and are commanding some big incentives to play those roles. So there's all kinds of directions that this thing could spin off to whenever the fall does actually arrive. And I think, just personally speaking, as a fan, I'll still have probably more questions than answers. So I will not be projecting some lofty rush to like contender category until we see some things happen. But I thought Utah was interesting. I thought the Baylor slotting was kind of interesting also, not even necessarily that I disagreed with it, but sounds like maybe there was some credibility earned back a season ago, possibly in the eyes of some, by Dave Aranda and the Baylor Bears. But nonetheless, would like to hear what you think out there about it. Let us know in the YouTube comments. And Chris, appreciate hearing what you think about that and all other subjects. Dennis Conner's ACC Network, Midnight Sailing, whatever it may be. So appreciate the time. Enjoyed it, man. And we will process the result of this ball game on the next episode for better or worse. So we'll see you then.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it. Guns up. Hope to see everybody at the arena tonight, 6 p.m. tip. And guns up, everybody.
That's right. And get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Hello to the everydayers out there. I know you've heard it before, everydayers, but we love you. God bless you. And shout out to the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes for your link to a free 14-day trial. your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. So just like our man Chuck, as referenced earlier in the program, you can be asking me about whether or not we should sit a guy like Darrion Williams because Texas Christian sucks, don't they? To paraphrase, I'm not quoting, to paraphrase, but those things and others always up for discussion inside the Matador Mob. So thank you all for being out there as well. For Chris, I'm Casey. We appreciate the time. And as always, hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.